Why are cops getting us high and making us drive?
Learn how stoner jobs will be protected in Washington thanks to a new bill.
Locally, Floridians are trying to grow their own medical marijuana.
Should unborn babies go to jail?
We interview Whitney Beatty, the founder and CEO of Josephine and Billy's and of Apothecary brands.
So stick around.
That was good. We hope that got your attention. Thanks for joining us today. We are your hosts. I'm Sunny D.
And I'm Captain J.
And we're the Pot Smoking Moms. Hey, if you are a fan of the show, please make sure you are subscribed to our YouTube channel. Rate, review, tell your friends, and go to our website, potsmokingmoms.com.
I'm ready to sesh. Are you?
Yeah, I might. This might tip me over the iceberg, but well, let's see what happens. If you're ready at home, or if you're not ready, you can go ahead and use this time to collect your goodies. We are gonna go.
Not ready.
Are you not ready?
So go get your stuff. We're about to sesh.
Yes, our smoke sesh is brought to you by Fluent. We appreciate them. Hey, check out their rewards program. Go through our Instagram. We have them linked. You could sign up for rewards, and that way you get a little bonus every time you smoke your weed. I've got a little bit of Freedom Town Holdings Fatso. It's a heavy-hitting indica crossed from GMO cookies and Legend OG. Funky fuel, garlic aromas, and flavors permeate the senses as you fall deeper into massive physical relaxation.
Ooh.
Beginning with a quick cerebral rush. Whoosh. In addition, for Freedom Town Holdings Fatso, users know benefits in relieving symptoms associated with insomnia, chronic pain, appetite loss, and anxiety. Major terpenes here is one of my favorites, limonene, followed by my other favorites, caryophyllene and myrcene.
Sweet. That sounds great. I have a Freedom Town Holdings as well. Chocolate marshmallow makes an impact in even small doses. This well-balanced hybrid is a rare masterpiece from an exotic genetics crossed with Gorilla Glue number 4 and mint chocolate chip. So the earthy diesel and cocoa aromas and flavors carry your senses like a boat floating down a chocolate river and leave you feeling relaxed with potent euphoria. Users of this strain note benefits in relieving depression, insomnia, loss of appetite, and stress. Major terpenes are caryophyllene, humulene, and linalool. That's a relaxing one.
That's what's it called?
That's like in lavender?
Yes, that's correct.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Oh. That tastes great.
Thank you to Fluent. We like the one in North Miami Beach, but they're all over the place.
Yes. Check out our links in bio for a link to their rewards program.
Hey, I was looking at our stuff, and we actually have a voicemail. You guys want to check out the?
It's been a minute since we've gotten a message.
Let's check it out.
Thank you for calling the Pot Smoking Moms hotline. Please leave your message after the beep.
Hey, Pot Smoking Moms. It's your Uncle Joe. And I just want to say I'm a big fan of the podcast. And, you know, I've smoked some pot back in my day. Can I tell you they used to call it reefer? And this stuff today will just knock me on my ass. So anyway, have a great show and much love to y'all.
Oh my God. Oh, good old Joe Biden
Oh
there.
God, I love the pictures
Does
of
he
him
like,
eating the ice
right?
cream.
Is that what he
Great
does
job.
now? All he does is eat ice cream?
No.
There are
Back-
dozens and dozens of photos of Joe Biden eating ice cream, by the way.
Really? Is that like a thing?
He
Is there a
loves ice
website?
cream, I guess.
I mean, who doesn't love ice cream? But I like that.
Nazis.
That's great. A whole Instagram dedicated to Joe Biden ice cream eating pictures.
Oh man, so you guys, you can leave us a message if you go to our Anchor where we host our podcast. Leave us a message and we'd play it on the show.
Yeah, leave us a voicemail. I'm so glad Joe Biden just dropped in on us like that, very randomly. I love it. Good to hear. Presidents are listening to the pot smoking moms.
But special thank you to our patrons, who we can't do this without you guys. You inspire us, you keep us going, you help us fund this because there are costs associated with it.
There
So
is.
thank you so much.
We're in too deep now, so
yeah.
thank you for supporting us and this dream that hopefully is your dream too.
And if you can support us, check out our Patreon, check out the tiers, the things that we have. Come into our Discord community and sesh with us at least 3 times a week.
Come sesh with us. Look, there is a QR code. If you are on YouTube right now, hey, look, if you're not on YouTube right now, you need to go to YouTube and subscribe to our podcast. Also, you can see our beautiful faces now. We put on makeup just for you. We didn't used to. You could also scan this little QR code. It'll take you right to our Patreon page, and you can see all the exclusive perks. And we can continue to keep this show going
And
with your
speaking
help.
of our Patreons, we're going to be going on a trip with them soon. Our patrons coming up in Orlando, March 10th through 12th.
We're so excited.
We're like literally counting down the days in the Discord chat. We're like 14 days, 13 days. Yeah.
Yes.
So that's going to be fun. And if you're in the Orlando area, meet up with us. We're going to dinner. We're going to brunch. Stay tuned to our social media. We'll be posting stuff about that as it gets closer. We're also going to
Alpro.
Yeah.
Alternative Products Expo. For those of you that don't know, here you get to see all of the innovative products. And by innovative, we mean cannabis products and CBD and mushrooms even, and all kinds of really interesting products. You'd be one of the first people to get a look at all the amazing products coming out to the market. Join us in Fort Lauderdale, March 3rd through the 5th. You can get free tickets using our promo code POPMOMS.
I think we're going to be there on the 4th, right?
Yeah, that's a Saturday.
That's the Saturday. Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll be there on the Saturday. DM us if you know, if you want to drop by and link up while we're out there.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. I'm excited to see all the different products and vendors that are going to be there.
I like going to the expo and just walking around. I like having a table
and
like
people too.
Yeah, you meet people. I like having a spa because it forces us to like talk to people because it's I think like we like socializing, but we're very hard to do small talk and to like initiate conversations. We're a little like,
we like to socialize, but not confident enough to just go up to somebody and start a conversation.
So
when we have the table, people are just coming up to us. So we're like, okay, this works.
Right. And but it's cool to kind of chill too because there's no pressure.
Having a little base.
We could look at the products because when you have a booth and stuff, you have to stay there. You don't really get to enjoy the rest of it, but we'll be hanging out, so hit us up. I feel like we should have a movie TV show segment. Okay, this is a proposal.
Because we do talk a lot about what we watch.
We do, and as we get older and our tastes get tastier,
more refined,
we are and we get more opinionated. I feel like as viejos, as old people, but I feel like a lot of stoners can relate. We love watching movies, watching TV shows to get away from the everyday things and blah, blah, blah.
That's my get away from life.
You're a binger. Yeah,
I love to binge.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why when you're telling me you're complaining about these movies, I don't watch a lot of movies because I prefer the media of TV shows. I like short. It's going to be 1 hour or a half hour. That's why I really like the show I'm watching now.
I like the idea of that on TV shows, that you have the ability to watch an episode. Watching Atlanta was great. Episodes weren't even that long. Very easy to consume. And I just want to throw out that Atlanta to me is one of the best shows, TV shows there is. Okay.
Agreed.
To set the bar kind of like for what I'm about to say. You and me don't agree so much on everything. I know that my attention's all over the place. And it's
you
very
posted
hard.
like, oh, The Last of Us, you weren't liking it. I was like, I cannot let that stand without saying this is not me. I do not agree. I am enjoying The Last of Us thoroughly. I understand where you're saying it's similar.
Let me elaborate though on that. And that's good that you bring it up because it's part of the conversation, right? The whole conversation for me is like I start shows and a lot of times I don't continue to watch them. And I tried to do White Lotus because you guys were telling me to watch it. I thought it might be a good premise. I watched it and I couldn't relate to any of the characters. Everybody's rich. I just was like, these people are vapid. I don't like, I couldn't really do it. Stopped it. The Last of Us, I like the actors. Obviously, Pedro Pascal is like the it guy right now. But he's great. I liked him in Mandalorian and all that. And he's Hispanic, so that kind of makes me proud that he's like doing his thing. The show is great. I do really think it has a lot of Walking Dead connotations, which gives it room to have the same, just a similar plot with the same storyline revolving. And it's just like, we're going to introduce new characters here. And then they betray them and they continue in their journey. And then the walkers, the mushroom people try to kill them. And they go, one of them almost dies. And one dies. I thought the whole
what episode did you get up to?
I want to know
how far you got.
And let me tell you, the episode with Ron Swanson and his husband, I thought was an amazing episode.
Okay,
it caught me off guard. I cried too. I thought it was great. But again, a lot of it circles back over to the same kind of idea, right? Things become predictable for me, and that's when I start to just tune out because, like, I know what's happening. There was a point in time when, the girl wants a gun. Okay, I'm thinking like, just give her the fucking gun. Like, she's whatever. Your characters have already been developed enough to know that you're looking out for her, right? Oh, but he's the father figure, so no, she can't have the gun.
He just doesn't want a child.
Right? When she finds the gun, I'm like, this is what I turn around and I tell my husband. I go, she is going to save him. He is going to take the gun away from her because she wasn't supposed to have it in the first place. When that shit played out, I was like, oh my God, you see, it's the same thing. I knew it was going to happen. It's too predictable. I'm going to continue watching it because it's very well done. I love the acting. I'm not going to jump off just yet. I'll keep going. But I will say that it's very, very similar to Walking Dead. And I fell off because it was always the same thing. It was kept repeating, a cycle that kept repeating.
I didn't finish Walking Dead also because I felt that way.
And then Negan became this
that's not what's going to happen
caricature
with
of a villain
show because there's only so much source content. It's not like The Walking Dead where it's like a graphic novel series that was already very long and very developed, and then it became its own thing also on TV. And they just kept.
So what are you
milking
saying? That
all the
this
money
is
off
going
of it?
to be like a more short-lived series? They're not going to.
I think it's maybe 4 or 5 seasons, not like what Walking Dead.
Well, that would make sense. And this is another argument that I had. Like, stop making things 8 seasons if it's going to be the same circular storyline over and over and over again, just different characters.
I feel like most fantastic shows are about 4 to 5 seasons. Like what Breaking Bad's 5 or
4.
6?
I think it was 4. Is it?
No, I think it's more than 4.
Well, one that was too long is How I Met Your Mother, ran 8 seasons, and they fucked everybody over in the last fucking season.
Yeah.
And I think millennials will never recover from that shit. So I will never commit to 8 seasons of any fucking TV show. Okay. So then with the TV show situation, right? Because then I started talking to my husband. We had a very deep conversation this morning about this. Game of Thrones. Okay? Fucking one of the most epic shows of all time, something I wanted to binge.
Yeah.
Okay. A show that made people feel things. All right. The Red Wedding. Don't tell me you didn't watch The Red Wedding and fucking sob like a bitch afterwards. Because
I did. I was pregnant when I saw that.
oh, that was even worse.
And I cried like a fucking baby.
I was sobbing. My husband turns around and goes, "Are you serious?" And I was like, "What happened?"
Yeah.
It was a lot, but but it's like TV makes you feel something. I like that. I like that. Anyways, movie time, right? We're on Netflix. So let me go to movie time. I tried to watch 2 movies this week, girl, and I bailed midway through both movies. Okay. Again, predictable. Hollywood uses the same fucking people over and over again. There's no effort put into storyline. Everything goes into actors. Why? Because, oh, I love Kristen Bell, so I'll watch her in anything. This is kind of what happens. First movie I started watching was what is the movie with the one
You
with
People?
You People, right? It's Eddie Murphy and Jonah Hill. Okay. I look at all these people, fucking David
Great
Duchovny
cast.
and Julia Louis-Dreyfus. I love her. She is an icon for me, a legend.
Jonah Hill.
Yeah, Eddie Murphy, Nia Long, wonderful. And I don't know this girl's name, the actress, but I loved her a lot. I thought she was great.
Is she Kenya Barris?
I don't know. I know she was up there. I tried to watch it. For starters, why is everybody in the movie now movies now rich? Everybody has buku bucks. Nobody just lives a modest lifestyle. Everybody's fucking bonkers rich with fucking flashy outfits. Whatever.
Well, I don't feel like that's every movie. Those are just the movies you recently watched.
I guess, but to me, that's a majority of the recent movies that have been coming out. They're trying to normalize like these rich Instagram lifestyles. I just don't think that's the narrative we want to continuously force people to see. But anyways, I like the jokes in the movie. Jonah Hill plays this guy who has a podcast, and his co-host on the podcast is hilarious. I've seen her do stand up, amazing, hilarious. But then there was like the romance between, which I don't want to like. I think Jonah Hill should be a leading man. I think he should be in a romantic film. I want to see that. But I feel like they set him up to be this awkward. It was weird. The chemistry. You told me that the people were writing things about this movie, which I wasn't privy to prior to watching it.
It was TikToks that I saw.
TikToks that you saw, and they were
people
saying,
reviews. I watch a lot of the content creators that come up on my feed,
like movie reviews.
Reviewers, yeah, and they just said that the chemistry between the two characters was very forced. It didn't feel. It felt there.
Very, yeah.
It wasn't there. And then they were. Apparently the kiss at the end, like, or I don't know if it's at the end, but the kiss between them.
There was a kiss, which I didn't know this, but you say it's.
Apparently it was CGI'd, like they didn't actually kiss.
And from someone who saw it, I feel like.
Why would you CGI a kiss?
I think I bailed a little bit after this because I was like, that was weird. They kissed, and to me, I was like, wow, he's supposed to be in lower. That's the kiss that I had. Like that was lackluster.
There was no chemistry in the kiss.
It was
I
bland.
haven't seen it, but I saw like a clip of it on like a. TikTok.
It was weird.
It looked weird. Like they were coming in slow to each other or something.
Yeah, I don't know. It felt weird. Then they rely on like the stereotype tropes, right? Because her family is Black and his family is Jewish, so it's like they play on the stereotypes of the people, and I kind of like. That's also annoying because like why are we, it's hacky to me, and that feels hacky. So it's like, oh, and then they're getting married, so now it's like the families, which is like the story. I had to go.
And what was the other one?
The other one I watched was Kristen Bell, Allison Janney in the people we hate at the wedding. Okay.
Oh my God.
Look at that picture. It's awful. That Photoshop is terrible. Whoever did that. That's
people
awful.
We hate at the wedding.
Right. So the whole premise is the mixed girl is the stepsister to Kristen Bell and the guy, right? Okay. Allison Janney had a romance with this girl's father. he cheats on her. He's from the UK, and then she goes to America and has kids with 80 Miles. I don't know if you know this guy. He's from In Review. He's funny comedian.
I don't know.
Another
I
actor
would
like.
never watch that movie if I saw it in my.
The thing is the trailer. It's I think on Amazon. The trailer came up
because of Kristen Bell,
and I love Kristen Bell. The trailer came up and it looked like kind of like a dark comedy or something. And then again, it was like the same fucking storyline. She's rich. The girl that's getting married is rich. Why is everybody who gets married in a movie always has buku bucks?
Because it's the only way you can afford a wedding nowadays.
I mean, like, show me some fucking backyard wedding where everything goes wrong. Like, that's a fun movie to watch. Don't show me some fucking Instagram worthy wedding. She's flying out all of her family in fucking first class. Like, what the relatability of these characters is like nil. Everybody's well off. It's not like, oh, the sister's that poor and struggling. But anyways, I just feel like they keep making the same shit, and I'm gonna have to start going international to find my shit, find new shows internationally.
Watch more independent films.
I'm gonna go searching far and wide for the independent shit because all of this
don't watch movies anymore as much.
I like
just
movies,
stick to
and my thing
shows.
Is, but I have like an hour and a half. Like, right? That's like movies should be about an hour and 45
Not
minutes.
Anymore.
I see these 2-hour movies. I'm like, what the fuck? How can you watch that in one sitting? Not a parent, not me, not a stoner parent that has,
That's why
too much
my
to do.
shows.
Shows are good. You watch one, you go to sleep.
I got
two if you can.
Right now, I'm hooked on Servant, and I got this recommendation through one of our patrons.
Which is always how it starts. Look at that. Isn't that Rupert? Isn't that one of your Harry Potter
as well?
friends?
Yes, it's Rupert Grint. It's Ron Weasley.
Ron Weasley.
Which is a big reason why I wanted to watch it. And his sister, she is from 6 Feet Under. She was the younger one out of the siblings from the family. And then I've never seen this girl before. This is the first thing I've seen her in. And then that guy, I've seen him in stuff before, but I don't remember.
The premise is cool. It's like sci-fi, right?
It's
or like
fantasy.
Like scary, kind of scary.
Not fantasy, culty, occult. Like
occult.
Yeah, occult. That's that genre,
Yeah.
right? OCC.
Right? Like
ULT.
Yeah.
But the premise of the show, I don't know, I could give a small premise.
Yeah, premise to it.
Is basically they just had a baby and they're hiring the nanny. The young girl's the nanny that comes. And the nanny is there to take care of a baby that's not really a baby. It's a doll. Because the mother, they lost the baby young.
Oh, no.
And she's had trouble coping with losing her baby. So they've been pretending with this doll.
Right.
So
that's.
But it gets crazy.
And I am, you know what? I'm going to try to watch that. Obviously, I go in a couple episodes. If it doesn't do it by the 3rd or 4th episode, I bail. But at least I give it a good shot.
Half-hour episodes.
I love that.
Half-hour episodes, quick. So you could easily.
I have a few things to say about M. Night Shyamalan, but
it is really weird. So remember, it is M. Night Shyamalan.
Yeah, which I like and hate. I like his stuff, but there's parts of his stuff that I'm like, dude.
The twist.
Let me write the end. Sometimes I'm like, can I just write the end for you? Can I just help you with the ending here, sir? Yes.
Well, this apparently is 4 seasons, and this is the last season.
Oh,
so,
cool!
Look, 4 seasons.
I like
half-hour
that too.
episodes.
You already know what you're getting into. You know how long the whole show is.
I recommend it. It's good.
True. Cool. Well,
I don't know if you'll like it because you didn't like my last couple of recommendations. You didn't like White Lotus.
Yeah, the White Lotus. I know.
The Last of Us. You're on the fence.
I'm gonna keep watching that though. For the acting and for the special effects, I'm telling you that Ron Swanson episode. I wish I knew his actual actor name. I hate calling him Ron Swanson, but that's just more notable. For life, kind of. But that was a really good episode.
It was a fantastic episode. And originally, the full director's cut is 2 hours long.
I would like to see the girl wreck some shit, to be honest. I want to see her be badass,
I'm sure we will. This is just the beginning.
Whatever. Hey guys, enough about us and our fucking opinions on movies. Here is a wonderful segment you've grown to love.
News Nugs, where we get high and read the news to you. So police are getting people high as part of a stoned driving training.
What?
Yes, that's right. Cops in Maryland will get you stoned and provide the snacks. Driving while stoned, it has become one of the more vexing challenges for law enforcement in the era of legalization, with cops across the country struggling to square the jurisdiction's new cannabis laws with their mandate to keep the roads safe. The Washington Post detailed how a police department in Maryland, where voters approved a measure legalizing recreational pot last year, are preparing for a potential spike in impaired drivers on the roads. According to the Washington Post, the Montgomery County, Maryland Police Department holds a gathering 2 or 3 times per year.
Montgomery County brings in marijuana smokers, literally goes to pick them up in police cars and walks them to the tent outside its training academy so they can get stoned. Bags of Cheetos, bottles of water, and plenty of pizza are on the house,
my
the
God.
report said. Because obviously we're stoners and that's like
That's what we
do.
want, apparently.
Participants are then used as test subjects for officers trying to determine whether someone is too high to drive. That's not easy. Unlike people who drive drunk and whose impairment can be quantified by breathalyzers and blood alcohol tests, it's more difficult to discern with pot. The exercise, according to the Post, is increasingly being held at police agencies nationwide.
What?
As states and cities have lined up to reform their existing cannabis laws and end the prohibition on pot, law enforcement in those jurisdictions have often had to play catch up.
This is insane.
Yeah.
So it's happening in multiple places. So that was in Maryland. This is in Virginia, which became the first state in the southern United States to legalize recreational cannabis in 2021. Officials began exploring options last year to crack down on stone driving. Virginia officials said the oral fluid tests under consideration to detect marijuana intoxication are similar to a preliminary breath test. What? An oral fluid test? A roadside test for alcohol. The test results, while not admissible in court,
Like spit,
can
right?
help determine when cannabis was consumed and can be combined with other factors to get probable cause for extensive blood testing. Jeez. The Virginian pilot reported in December. The newspaper also said that the officials were considering changing state law to allow roadside screening devices in which officers and deputies can have a driver swab his or her cheek in order to gather saliva to test for marijuana and other drugs. That's crazy. That's also like taking your DNA.
In New York, which legalized recreational cannabis for adults in 2021, officials were said to be scrambling last fall as they raced to develop the mechanism to determine whether or not someone is too stoned to drive. Identifying drivers impaired by cannabis use is of critical importance. However, unlike alcohol, there are currently no evidence-based methods to detect cannabis-impaired driving, read a memo from New York Governor Kathy Hochul's office. The stone driving simulations in Montgomery County, Maryland, might be the most novel effort yet. The Washington Post story provided an account of a recent session held on a Thursday night in January that lasted nearly 4 hours.
Participants engaged in 30-minute consumption sessions, followed by impairment evaluations inside the building, and then repeated the cycle. During the second consumption session, officers asked if any volunteers wanted to add alcohol to the mix.
Oh, that's like
That's cheating.
that's already like
That's not really
That's
gauging
right.
cannabis consumption, like how impaired you get. Once you add alcohol, that skews everything up, fucks it all up. Who wants a Bud Light? Asked Lieutenant John O'Brien, leaning over a cooler. Then
gross. I hope nobody wants a fucking Bud Light. If you're a stoner, I'm sure you got better taste than to go, oh, Bud Light? Oh, sure. Hand it over, buddy.
Some people like it, like it's like water. I don't know.
Oh, then he grabbed a
large bottle of booze, Captain Morgan. Jeez. None of the subjects drive home. They return via the cops who brought them. All hold medical use cannabis cards and are reimbursed for the product they ingest. The Post said that the Montgomery has been a leader in the cannabis labs programs, also called Green Labs, which experts say appears to be operating in nearly 10 states. So yeah.
So this sounds like a whole fucking setup. If anybody says, "Hey, do you want to come over?" If any cop comes and says, "Hey, you like weed? Come on over. We'll hook you up with some goodies, some snacks and treats, as long as you drive your car around for me." First of all, that's creepy. Don't let anybody talk you into
But
doing
wait,
that.
they never said that they drove.
Well, I would hope that it stopped at the Bud and the Bud Light and the Captain Morgan. If they're accepting that,
it seemed like they just got them high and then like evaluated them. They
like
kept-
they're
they said that it was several hours and then there were 30-minute sessions of consuming and then they would be evaluated and it would repeat. But they never said that there's, I mean, the last part of the evaluation was them driving.
there's a
but-
whole story.
Yeah, that's the whole story.
Because they don't ever say what happened, right? They never say like what.
It just says participants
how
engaged
they
in a
could
30-minute
tell.
consumption session followed
Because
by
what?
impairment evaluations inside the building.
And
So
I
there's
would
no
like to know-
driving.
Oh, but that's so stupid then. And then on top of that,
That
how would you even know then what do they do that would make you think they're stoned?
I guess they
How
probably,
could you even
they kind of the same similar test they give you when
You're
they
drunk.
pull you over when you're drunk to see if how impaired you are. Probably similar to that. I don't know, but there was no driving
I
involved.
don't know.
But I always thought that like the best way to determine speed limits is to just have a really stoned person drive that road, because I almost feel like every time I'm driving high, I am going exactly the speed limit, and that's not even on like
I'm aware of I'm aware.
I'm like, oh, this is like the perfect speed for this road.
Your judgment is
Stop
impeccable.
it.
You should be
All right.
the gold standard for pot smoking mom.
I don't know. That sounds sketch, going to smoke with cops.
Yeah, right. It should stop there. If a cop is like, "Hey, I got some snacks," you'd be like, "No, bro, I don't need your snacks. I got my own. Thank you."
I could buy my own snacks. I could buy my own flowers.
See?
I'm good.
And if you become a patron and we're able to make enough money, this was where we would insert the sketch of the cop trying to get you to do the tests for him to see how to tell if you're stoned.
Yeah.
Bad news, don't do it. If you need snacks, hit us up. We got the snacks. Don't go to cops for snacks. Or pizza.
Next
For that
story.
matter.
Our next story. Washington Senate passes bill banning hiring discrimination for pot use. Okay, this sounds promising.
Yay!
So the Washington Senate this week approved a bill that would protect cannabis users from pre-employment job discrimination. The measure, Senate Bill 5123, was passed by the state Senate on Wednesday by a vote of 28 to 21 and will now be considered by the Washington House of Representatives. Oh, it's not. It still needs to be considered by the House of Representatives.
Word.
Under the bill, employers would be barred from refusing to hire a job candidate based solely on the results of pre-employment screening for cannabis use. So basically, they can't test. Right? That's what I'm understanding. The legislation does not include protection for other substances, so screenings for other drugs would still be allowed during the hiring process.
So we're sure you know how to evade those tests already.
Just get
Because
Please
isn't
piss.
weed say the longest in your system anyway?
Yeah, weed is the one.
Yeah.
It comes down to discriminating against people who use cannabis. State Senator Karen Kaiser, the lead sponsor of the bill and the chair of the Senate Labor and Commerce Committee, said in a statement cited by the online news site, The Center Square. For people using a legal substance, having a pre-employment test like this is just plain unfair and should stop. At a time when the number of unfilled positions is extremely high, we shouldn't be limiting our workforce by deterring qualified job applicants, she said. This legislation opens the door for people who might otherwise not even apply for a position. So, like, I wonder if that also applies if they have any, like, past cannabis possession charges in their background.
The legislation does not apply to some jobs, including positions in the airline and aerospace industries. The measure also does not apply to jobs that require a federal background check or security clearance. While the bill protects potential employees from drug tests while applying for a job, Kaiser noted that the bill does not prevent employers from subjecting their workers to drug screenings for weed during employment. Probably like
Like, you
workers'
can still be
comp.
fired for
like workers' comp, right? Like if you test positive
during
work
claim.
hours, which if you smoke weed, you will test
Yeah.
positive. Period.
Even if you're not smoking during work hours.
Under the measure, companies will still be allowed to fire employees who test positive for cannabis in order to maintain a drug-free workplace. Employers could also subject employees to a drug test for cannabis use after a workplace accident or if they suspect a worker is impaired by cannabis on the job. If your employer wants to test you every week after you're hired, they're still able to do that,
Oh my
Kaiser
God.
said. This is simply opening the front door of getting into a job because too many people who see they have to take a drug test to even apply don't even apply. And honestly, as someone who's applying, that's
That's
true.
true. Washington legalized recreational pot in 2012. The passage of the Initiative 502, a ballot measure that was supported by nearly 56% of voters. But while the measure protected cannabis users from prosecution, the initiative did not include protections for workers who use weed off the job. Nevada became the first state to protect job applicants from pre employment drug tests for cannabis in 2019. Since then, other states have also passed employment protection measures, including California bill protecting workers from discrimination based on their use of marijuana while off the clock that was passed last year. Cannabis advocates who support employment protections note that current drug screenings can only determine the presence of cannabis metabolites, which can remain in the system long after using marijuana. Earl Bison, executive director of the Cannabis Alliance, told lawmakers at a public hearing last month that potential job candidates can't consume cannabis legally and still test positive weeks later. Yep. I mean, like, doesn't everybody know that? If the same approach were applied to alcohol, employers would refuse employment to anyone who enjoyed a beer or a glass of wine on the weekend, said Bryson. We all know that this is not a workable standard. It is simply doesn't make sense to base an employment decision on that kind of unreliable outcome and tests, Kaiser told her colleagues in the Senate before Wednesday's vote.
I think it's a waste of money and time too on
True.
everybody's behalf. Brian Fitzpatrick, CEO of the cannabis industry compliance platform Curable, said that there are legitimate reasons for some employers to maintain a drug-free workplace, but he added that exceptions need to be made, particularly for medical cannabis users, but also for responsible adult users. There are policies that exist that govern not showing up for work intoxicated under the influence of alcohol, and cannabis should be no different, Fitzpatrick wrote in an email to High Times. Unlike alcohol, there is research suggesting that cannabis use does not significantly impair job performance. As such, employers should reevaluate their policies regarding cannabis use to create a more equitable approach to cannabis users.
Yeah, I mean, more bills like this need to pass, and they just need to stop testing, period. And it shouldn't be an issue if it's in your history either, because it's unfair. Like, you have a cannabis possession charge from something you did years ago that's
Right.
completely legal now,
Right.
you know, and it would deter you from getting a job. That's also another way you could be discriminated by it. But
And I think as we continue to try to legalize all over the board, more and more of these bills and stuff have to be presented.
yep. So now it's for our other segment.
Your other favorite segment. We love this one.
I love this intro.
I love you, Miami!
You know what it is though? I think it's also too Livan Hernandez's like hopefulness.
I mean, he
that
just
his-
won the fucking World Series.
Oh my god! And he had
He's like,
just
"I love
gotten
you,
here
Miami."
too. Yeah, what a way to
To
you know.
be welcome to America.
I know.
A proposal would permit for Floridians to grow their own medical marijuana. Okay, let's see what this is about.
Mm-hmm.
A group is seeking support for constitutional amendment allowing caregivers and adult qualifying patients 21 years or older to cultivate marijuana for medical use. A political committee.
You still ate
A
it.
political committee has started moving forward with a proposed constitutional amendment that would allow. Is that the same thing over again? That would allow medical marijuana patients and patient caregivers to grow cannabis at home. The Wise and Free Florida Committee is seeking to get the proposal on the 2024 ballot, according to newly posted information on the State Division of Elections website. To do so, it would need to submit 589 valid petition signatures.
This is my
That is so hard. Look. True Leaves
Truly
spent
is pouring 20 million and they have
millions to do the same thing.
150,000 signatures.
It
But wait,
says it here.
and this is my whole thing. These people want to get this on the 2024 bill. I
And
haven't
it's-
heard
do
of
they not-
any petitions going out about this.
This just started. They just
So what
announced-
are they? 2024?
There's no way.
There's no way, bro.
They don't have
Good
the
luck.
to get 800 valid signatures.
Yeah.
because of the process
Bro,
of getting them validated.
Yes, and can I say I see the True Leave $20 million hard at work when I'm looking for jobs on the job boards.
Yep, they're
And
there.
I see a
the posts.
canvasser, and they're paying people good money because they're like, we need these signatures. It's not good money, but it's like not worst money.
It's not minimum wage.
Right. But they, I mean, good luck. I agree with this. I think it's still silly about it's medical marijuana, right? Medical marijuana because you have your card, but it's not. I mean, you cannot be going through the vigorous testing that the state makes these people go through, dispensaries go through.
Well, no, you're not going to be. You're going your own. You wouldn't be able to.
Right. You wouldn't
sell
have
it
to
or
do all that.
anything.
Or you
wouldn't have to qualify. You're just getting your own. I'm assuming they're probably going to have some kind of license process because it says caregivers also. So there's probably going to be like a caregiver's license that you can get, and you're going to be allowed to grow a certain number of plants for every patient you grow for.
Right.
Like other states have done it.
A summary of the proposal said it would allow caregivers and adult qualifying patients 21 years and older to cultivate marijuana for medical use, and that cultivation would be limited to the cultivator's home. The proposal comes as a committee known as a Smart and Safe Florida tries to get an amendment on the 2024 ballot to allow recreational use of marijuana.
That's the True Leave one.
That committee, here we go. They're following up. Oh, they're up to 291,999 valid signatures
as of Friday afternoon, and this story came out on the 21st of February.
Yeah, that's that's an improvement. They got,
and they've put over $20 million into that effort. So good luck for this petition. I mean,
we're trying to get somebody from them to
Florida Wise or Wise.
Yeah, from Smart and Safe from Wise. Yeah, Wise.
I have another slide. Here it is. Wise Florida. Their Instagram, they posted recently. They put in their link in bio the petition. So there's a link there where you can go in. So if you're a patient, or even if you're not a patient, you think patients should have the right to be able to grow their own medicine or have somebody grow it for them. This is where you can find that petition on their Instagram, wise_Florida. And they have it linked there in their bio. Interesting. I mean, it'd be great. You could get a smaller grower that does a well job to be your caregiver grower, kind of like Together We Grow that we had on the show. That's what they did in Michigan. That's what they did over there.
Please be my caregiver here.
Okay, so this is
so if our teaser really pulled you in,
oh my god. So this is a crazy story. So Florida woman argues her unborn baby should be released from jail.
Oh my god.
Natalia Harrell was 6 weeks pregnant when she fatally shot another woman.
Can we be very clear here?
Okay, yes. I was curious when I saw that. Why is this? When I saw this headline, I was like, why is this pregnant woman in jail? And then I said, okay, she's being accused of a murder. And it was actually caught on tape. And I watched
in an Uber
the video.
And it
was in an Uber.
Yeah.
Full of people.
And she popped the cap in someone's probably face, not ass.
In the car full of people. I couldn't believe it when I saw it. And it's on video. So it's very clear.
Yeah. She fucked up.
So she's awaiting trial. She is in prison right now, waiting trial. This crime occurred in July of last year.
The person she shot is dead.
She claims her unborn baby is being unlawfully detained. The person she shot is dead. I believe she's the mother of 3, the woman that she killed. In an emergency petition in a Florida court, Ms. Harrell's lawyer argued that a jail staff had endangered the child through a lack of reasonable and necessary prenatal care.
The argument draws on the concept that a fetus is a person with rights. The idea that an unborn child is a person with constitutional protections has gained traction since the U.S. Supreme Court overturned the nationwide right to an abortion known as Roe v. Wade last summer. Ms. Harrell's unborn child is a person as defined under the Florida Constitution and United States Constitution. Attorney William Norris wrote in a legal submission after coughing. Bullshit.
The filing was made on behalf of the unborn child and calls for Harrell to be discharged from jail until the child is born so she can receive proper care. An unborn child has rights independent of its mother, even though it's still in the womb, Mr. Norris told the Washington Post. The unborn child has been deprived of due process of law in this incarceration. Miss Harrell has been jailed without bond in Miami-Dade County since last July after she shot Gladys Yvette Borcella, whom she was traveling with in an Uber.
The 24-year-old has pleaded not guilty to second-degree murder. According to Mr. Norris' petition, Ms. Harrell acted in self-defense in fear of her life and the fear of her unborn child. He alleges that in jail, his client has not received the prenatal vitamins, food, and liquid she needs or been taken to her scheduled doctor's appointments as well, and was at one point left in a transport van without air conditioning while temperatures soared over 100 degrees.
Oh my God. But that's just in general mistreatment of inmates. The way they treat people that are incarcerated is just,
it's terrible.
And while you're awaiting trial, you're technically you're innocent until proven guilty.
But you're still subjected to whatever they have you go through.
Yeah, and she's being held without bond, so there's no chance for her to bond out of jail.
Yeah, well, she shot someone straight square in the face.
But she's still awaiting trial.
Right.
So technically, as the law is,
if we're getting technical,
yes, we see in videos.
I mean, if
she
we're getting
shot somebody.
I mean, but this is like it's getting technical of the technical because here was a technical because technically the fetus.
I feel like that video is why she has no bond. Like they're not allowing any bond for her.
It's clear.
Yeah, it's like clear. You shot that bitch. And she's dead. She's without her life. So we know you're going to be going to prison. So we're not going to let your ass out.
Right.
But she said they said that she was 6 weeks pregnant when the crime occurred. Like, did she even know she was pregnant?
Yeah, right.
At 6 weeks.
Well, but that's why this is a far reach, right? Because the government's reaching far with their stance on abortion and all that stuff. So she's coming in. I mean, she can't. She's coming in with a good, argument, defense, but at the same time, yes, she should be getting a better care because she's pregnant.
Yes.
So, I do agree that they should get better medical attention. I think they should take care of prisoners.
Well, it says here that her last medical examination was in October, and this is being reported in February. And Mr. Norris added, making it unclear how far along the pregnancy is or when the baby is due to be delivered. In a statement, the Miami-Dade County Corrections and Rehabilitation Department said that it was conducting a full review of the health services offered and received to ensure that all prenatal care being provided in the custody is appropriate. And on Monday, the Florida Attorney General Ashley Moody's office called for the petition to be dismissed, noting it did not include adequate evidence to support her claims of neglect. Okay, but she could still be on house arrest, right? While she's awaiting trial. And why spend the money of her being
but she's locked up? Is she a threat? If she squared up and shot some lady in the face in an Uber, obviously there's no constraint. She is doing stuff she shouldn't be doing. So I don't think she should be in house arrest. But I do think they should have proper care for any woman who's
100%. If a woman's pregnant, I mean, in general, any medical, they should get
medical attention, menstrual,
yes.
Because I understand that they're
just in general, they should be getting
female care,
medical care.
So Michael O'Brien, the father, told the NBC Miami he was concerned for the child's well-being. I don't want the baby to be born prematurely or low birth weight, he said. The conditions are terrible, and I feel she's not getting the prenatal care she should be getting. Yes, I know, bro, but she shouldn't be fucking popping caps in people's asses either, all willy-nilly like that. I mean, that's fucking crazy. You could see the video if you guys want. We're not gonna show it here.
No, we're not gonna show it. You could go watch it.
It's not graphic, but at the same time, it's pretty straight up. There's no if, ands,
but
buts
the
about
things that
it.
she thought her life was in danger was self-defense. She's claiming also stand her ground because the girl came at her.
Yeah,
the girl lunged at her.
She is in trouble.
But they're in a car full of other people. Did you really think that
she's going to try any way she can to get out of the situation? Obviously. And I gotta say, The government is giving her a little out.
Yeah.
And I
they
can't blame her for using
trying to use
that.
it.
Yeah.
But but we need them.
But I don't
we
think
need
it's gonna
them
work
to
in
say
her
no, it
favor,
doesn't
though.
work, because that's that's legislation in our court that says, hey, you're
Right.
saying here
Yeah,
that this
yeah,
is not
yeah.
a baby, that this
Right.
is not a person with a,
Yeah,
if
get
you're
your
saying
shit
it
straight,
here,
guys.
you can't say it over there. So we
Right.
gotta,
You can't
that
pick
is
and choose
something
here.
that can help us. That's gonna be
I
law
know.
on our side.
Yeah. So I
for
mean,
abortion rights.
This is fully loaded.
It's a crazy story.
It is.
And right here in Miami.
Yo,
Only in Miami.
It is. It is only in Miami. Hey guys, thank you so much for hanging in with us this far into the episode.
If you're here this long, you should be subscribed to our channel.
If you're here this long, you better find that subscribe button, that follow button, whatever button. Hit that button. Help our channel grow. Thank you, Uncle Jesse, for throwing up those
graphics,
reinforcing words
and
down
if you're
there.
listening, start watching.
Yeah, we're cute. We got fun. Look at this little weed leaf guy. Look at our trophies. These are our awards.
And then you would be able to see the interview that we're about to have right now with the lovely
Whitney Beatty. She's the High Mommy Life. And Josephine and Billy's she is one of the founders and CEO. It's the first dispensary in the nation focused on the recreational and medicinal needs of women of color. It's named for Josephine Baker and Billie Holiday, two Black women who were demonized for cannabis use. And the store itself is a tea pad, the Black version of a speakeasy where Black people would consume cannabis and socialize in the 20s and 30s. We talk about this in our interview with her. We talk about the design that is gone into this dispensary. It's really nice. I mean, look at the pictures online. She's also Apothecary Brands. It's a cannabis storage company with
beautiful,
very high quality lockable cases. It matches the style of her store, of the Josephine and Billy's. But here we are. I hope you enjoy this interview with Whitney Beatty. Here it is.
Well, welcome, Whitney. Thank you so much for taking the time to meet with us today and tell us a little bit about yourself and your companies. Can you tell us a little bit how you got into the cannabis space and how you started your ventures?
Ooh, sure. So, I guess I'm not a typical, cannabis entrepreneur because I didn't use cannabis in high school or college. I grew up in Detroit in the late 80s, and Nancy Reagan told me to say no to drugs, and I believed her. I didn't think she was going to lie to me like that. So I did not want my egg fry head. What ended up happening for me is I came to California to get my master's degree in film production. And I started working in the entertainment industry. And I was working my way up. I was putting in these really extremely long days, 16-hour days, living off of coffee and Red Bull and everything that they offered for free because I was poor. And I had an incident one day at my desk where I started having heart palpitations and shortness of breath. And I thought I was dying. I thought I was having a heart attack. But I thought it would be embarrassing if I got carried out of the office. So I got up, grabbed my car keys, and drove myself to the ER, and left my car where the ambulances were and went in and told them I was dying. And they rushed me to the back and they hooked me up to the EKG machine. And they're like, lady, you're not having a heart attack. You're having an anxiety attack. And I was like, whoa. Number one, that's not possible because I'm a type A personality and we don't have anxiety. I just didn't believe it. And so they started putting me on a lot of different medications. And I was really wary about having to take medications for the rest of my life because of how young I was at the time. And my doctor in an offhand comment was like, well, have you thought about cannabis? And I was like, because for me at that time, I was like, this woman's trying to put me on drugs. She is like, I don't know. She needs to get her license taken. But what it did was it made me do my research. And I kind of did it two ways. I started learning about the plant and I learned about THC and CBD and the entourage effect. And I learned about terpenes. And eventually I was able to find a regimen for myself that was able to take me off of this anxiety medication. But on the other side, and I think probably even more importantly, it made me do my research about why I felt so negatively. Why do I have such negative connotations about this plant? And that took me down a completely different path. I learned about cannabis being plant medicine for 3,000 years, and being prohibited for 70. And yet that's what we focus on. I learned about, the history of people of color in cannabis and, how slaves were used to harvest hemp. And I learned about tea pads and prohibition, and Harry Anslinger, who was responsible for prohibition and also said, reefer makes darkies think they're as good as white men. And about the intense amount of racism that surrounded prohibition. Even the word marijuana has racist roots. And once I was able to learn all that, I was like, this plant didn't do anything to anybody. We did something to the plant. And it changed my whole outlook. And it made me a lot more interested in the industry. So I started looking into it. And I was like, okay, I think that there might be a place for me here. And at the time I had a kid and a dog, and I really wanted somewhere nice to keep my cannabis. And I realized I had my wine in a wine fridge and my liquor in a bar and my cigars in a humidor. And I kept my high-end cannabis in a shoebox under my bed. And I didn't think that made sense. And I wanted a safe place for people to be able to keep their cannabis, keep it fresh, and keep it locked up. And so I created my first Apothecary case, and I started the Apothecary brand back then in 2015, and was off to the races, really, working that company. And eventually the city of Los Angeles offered social equity within the city. And social equity is the idea that communities of color have been disproportionately disenfranchised by the war on drugs and thus deserve prioritization and legalization. That means that, they were over policed and deserve the opportunity to get licenses. And I qualified for that program. And so I was like, you know what? I had to do a lot of research. I had to do a lot of work in order to figure out how cannabis could work for me, and learning about all this history. What if I opened a dispensary that really made that whole process easier? And that's how Josephine and Billy's was born. So now I've got two companies in the cannabis space.
It's wonderful. And let me tell you, your cases are beautiful. We were looking at all of them. They're so beautiful. I feel like as parents, it's really important for us to keep some of that stuff locked up and away from the kids because, anything can happen and you want to kind of just like limit the chances of any of that happening. Obviously, we're all about educating. So, we educate our kids and we're all about educating our kids. But
I mean, you never know if somebody comes over to play and they wander into a room they're not supposed to, and then
all
they find something. Yeah, there's so many possibilities. Even if we educate our own children, we don't know, how some other children that may be in our home are educated by their parents. So yeah, the cases are beautiful.
And then let me ask you this. When it came down to it, when they were doing the social equity that you were able to apply for the licenses, what kind of like hoops did you have to jump through to get that going?
To all the hoops. It was like a hula hoop convention. It was all ridiculous. So, I mean, in order to get, and I can only speak to Los Angeles, I have looked at a lot of other programs, but I can speak to my experience in Los Angeles. We had to work, first to qualify for social equity. And in, legal terms, even if you're targeting and trying to help communities that were disproportionately disenfranchised, which are generally communities of color, you can't say communities of color because that is not legal. So what they did was they broke this down by zip codes that were disproportionately affected, where higher arrest rates were. So we had to prove that we lived in these areas, prove how much money we made, prove how long we lived in these areas. And go through that. And then you had to, in Los Angeles, it was a first come, first serve application process. So, but we had to have property. So literally, I think they said 1,800 or so people got approved as equity applicants and 800 applied, which makes for a lot of people, 800 people who have signed 800 leases and 800 locations that are available, in the city. And yet only 100 would get selected.
Oh,
I
wow.
was really lucky and I was in that first 100, but that left 700 people who paid a lot of money, had to get investors, and who did not get placement. And then that whole process ended up having been a mess. It was audited, delayed for long time. Eventually they ended up granting another 100 licenses because of lawsuits, but because of all those delays for the people who had initially got selected, for like me, we ended up paying rent on places that we could not sell cannabis out of for years, over 2 years. And so when you're, disproportionately disenfranchised by the war on drugs, and yet you have to pay holding costs because you can't sell the product, it becomes really difficult. Then after that, they say, okay, now you can move on, and you have to, do your build out. You have to get inspections. You have to make sure that you're showing your compliance. You have to go through all these plan check things. So it's one thing after another, after another. So it is a time consuming process for sure.
And
Getting
expensive.
Yeah.
really expensive.
Let me ask you this too. Out there, you guys don't have vertical integration, right?
We do
You
have
do?
vertical integration, and it becomes, it's a blessing for those companies that have it. But when you're talking about smaller companies like, retail, or people who only have one piece of the pie, it also becomes really difficult for the rest of us to compete. Because if, the big MSO, the big multi-state operator has cultivation, manufacturing, distribution, retail, and delivery, then their prices can be a lot better than mine because they are not, passing those charges along, whereas it becomes more difficult for the smaller independently owned and operated stores because we have to buy all of our product from distributors, and we have to pay those markups. So it becomes, a balance.
So the vertical integration isn't required in order to participate and be licensed. Yeah, here
No.
in Florida, you have to be able to be vertical integration to be able to participate.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we don't have that requirement. So you can just have a piece. I know people who are just distro, just like us, we're just retail and delivery.
Yeah, over here it's crazy. We're out in Florida. It's medical only out here, but it's a huge, reports say that our state would probably come in third or fourth in the industry. But vertical integration here
Makes
is
it difficult.
difficult. And on top of that, for minorities, it's kind of non-existent
social equity
here.
programs.
Right. So how can you please help us? Because we're Latinas and we want to support women of color. We're part of you guys. We want to really do it here. How can we get that going here? How can we get them to agree to social equity so that we can start getting minority owned and operated businesses here?
That's a great question. And I would say the first thing and one of the most important things is being civically involved. And it's not easy, but it's critically important that we see women and people of color show up as municipalities, the cities, and states start to discuss legalization. As they're looking at, going rec legal. What does that look like? What does that licensure process look like? Are we going to do carve outs for communities who have been disproportionately harmed? And it's being able to go to those city council meetings, to those cannabis regulatory meetings. And, they always offer that 3 minutes of open talk. Having someone there to say something to those people makes all the difference in the world, because if they don't hear it, they don't think that their constituencies value it. I'm vice president of an organization called Supernova Women. We're a 501c3 that seeks to encourage women of color to become stakeholders in the cannabis space. And we do that through advocacy, through networking, and we really work hard to give people the tools across the country to advocate for themselves. So last year we did a study that was looking at all the social equity programs that are out there. And we were able to look at the numbers and realize that for every dollar spent in an equity program, a municipality is guaranteed to get at least $1.50 back. And if they put the right pieces in place, they can see as much as $4.50 back. So that, those statistics allow us to be able to go and stand in front of people who might not care as much about communities of color, but do care about numbers, and let them know that, hey, if you invest in this, it's going to pay off for our community as a whole, to be able to have the benefits of jobs in these communities, and participation in the amount of money that is going to be able to flow back into these communities of color. All of those things need to be mentioned when they're making these decisions, because what we know for sure is if they don't talk about it, they generally don't circle back and put a program in place. It has to be towards the beginning, or always on that table. And it's also important as you look at how they allow participation, i.e., only allowing people to be vertically integrated, because it is damn near impossible for a small minority company in the beginning to be able to operate all of those licenses. We're talking about millions and millions and millions of dollars in order to get these businesses off the ground. It's a couple million just for retail. It is more for cultivation, because we're talking about lights and very expensive equipment on top of that. So it really does help to push out those people who can't afford to play. And what we know for sure is that when we're talking about financing these things, it's incredibly difficult, and especially difficult for women, and it's especially difficult for women of color, because we can't go to the bank. There's not like a Bank of America is going to be like, I'm going to give you a loan for your cannabis business. They still look at us as being federally illegal, because we are. And so you can't get any loans. You can't go to the SBA. You have to be able to get money from angel investors or VCs. So angel investors tend to invest in people that remind them of themselves. They're usually older white men, and they tend to give their money to the same. And VCs, the data has been very clear that VCs are giving 2% of their money to women-led businesses. And that's across the board, not just cannabis. So if we're getting 2% of those dollars, and then if you're brown like me, now that number drops down to 0.0006%. So when we're talking about a cannabis industry that used to, when I came into it, everyone was talking about, yay, we got more women than anybody else and more women CEOs in cannabis space and rah, 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 which was awesome. But as all of this VC money started pouring in and these investor dollars, and they're not investing in women, that number's plummeted, because it's hard for those women-led businesses to compete when they don't have the funds. That was a very long answer to your question, but there you go.
Oh, it
It was a
very,
great answer.
yes,
Thank you.
very informative.
And what kind of things does Supernova do to help minority-owned businesses come into the industry?
Great question. We do a bunch of things. On the entrepreneurial level, we have workshops, programs where we're teaching people different portions of operating a business. How do you deal with tax structure? How do you deal with grow and scale? How do you deal with social media? Being able to give business owners the tools to be successful. We also lobby on the state and local level for laws. So, we stood outside of the Capitol and have been pushing for lowering excise taxes on social equity-led businesses, making sure that our representatives know how important it is that they offer funding along with these programs. You can offer a social equity program, but if you're not giving some sort of grant money or have loan money, you're still putting that really out of reach. It's like me offering you a license to open a nuclear power plant. You don't have millions and billions of dollars. Like, it's nice. Oh, I got the certificate. I'm never going to get that business off the ground. It's never going to be Whitney's successful nuclear power plant, because I don't have the skill set or the money. So they have to be able to put those things in place, or else we're not going to be successful. So making sure that we know that they know that, making sure that we show up when there are bills on the ground, and that we're offering thought leadership in that way. And then we also do networking events so people can meet each other and be able to work collaboratively in order to build their businesses together, because that's also really important, especially for entrepreneurs, that we get to know each other, knowing how we can help each other, being able to pass information along. It makes us stronger as a community.
That's fantastic. We need a lot more of that and representation, excuse me. I would love to see if there's anything we can do to help promote Supernova women here in Florida, and try to get more women-owned businesses here. It's really hard with the way our industry is here. We're only medical, we're not rec. And now it looks like the petition that might make it onto our ballot is being sponsored by a huge
MSO,
corporation.
one
MSO.
of everybody's favorites. True Leave. I'm sure you know about them.
And
They're
I
huge.
do.
Millions of dollars.
20 million, actually, $20
I think like
million
up to
dollars.
25
And
million now.
this bill, which every time I see a canvasser trying to get me to sign it, I'm like, hell to the
The
no.
petition.
But it doesn't allow for home grow. And I understand that we've talked to several people, including lawyers, who are like, well, in order to get it passed, we got to try to make it as easy as possible and not have so many things. But at the same time, I don't want them to pass something that's going to let them sell more weed and not let me grow it. I mean, I'm not going to, I'm terrible.
It
We've
doesn't
tried.
make sense. I
But
mean, and you're hearing this from a cannabis retailer. I sell weed, but you know what? Grocery stores sell tomatoes, and they don't ban people from growing tomatoes in their backyard.
Exactly.
And in the same way, you can't, ban people from growing at home. But that also highlights the problem, because the big MSOs and these larger companies have money for what? Lobbyists. They have
Mhm.
lobbyists. They have people who can go and talk to the legislature and help craft these bills. And without having smaller businesses and smaller players having a seat at the table, our concerns are not taken into account. Of course, big business is going to want to have rules that support big business. It's critical that we make sure that we're also having our voices be heard by standing up next to them and not being intimidated. But it's hard when they've got lobbyists who have better connections.
And the home grow is not the only issue with that petition, because it's also, there's no additional licenses being considered, any ways to add licenses. So it's only going to be for like the existing license holders, and there's no
That's what we
full
call a monopoly.
exactly.
That is what we call a monopoly.
And it's in plain day. Like, you could see it from miles away. You don't have to be delved deep into the cannabis industry to see that what their petition they're setting up is to favor them and only them.
And no social equity programs tied to it either. It's like, it's bad.
Exactly. All of that becomes really concerning, and we had issues like that here, in so much as we went from medical to rec. And therefore the people who had the medical licenses were grandfathered in, which meant they had a huge head start on the rest of us. They had ability to build their businesses, build their bases or whatever, and everyone else is playing catch up. And we see what that does to those businesses that are playing catch up. It's really hard and makes it really hurtful. So I think that it's always critical that we make sure that we're not putting those other businesses at a detriment for people who have had their opportunity to build their business for years.
But like, too, I feel like these big MSOs, they do the most damage because they come into the market, they rule the market, they make it so that weed prices have to go down. And then what do? Like Curaleaf, then they drop everybody, they fire people, they leave. And now all the smaller dispensaries are having to clean up the mess because they're the ones that were struggling from the get. And now they're kind of left out there in a market where are the prices going down out there in California? Because they're going down here.
Oh, the price of flour has fallen tremendously, and that becomes the other hard thing for businesses like mine. So if you have an MSO who is vertically integrated, say they can sell, an eighth for $10. But I buy that eighth for $10. So there's no way I can sell it at $10. I need to be selling it at least $25 in order to make some profit and be able to pay all the taxes on it and all those things. So they're undercutting. It's like Walmart. They undercut the market or what have you. And so then these smaller businesses, they do what? They go out of business. And then those licenses are up for availability, and then they snatch them up. And now they've grown, and these smaller businesses continue to fail because they don't have the money to
They can't keep
compete.
up. Yeah.
A big MSO can afford to, cut their prices and wait people out because they have coffers in the bank. And as smaller, women-led, Black, brown-led businesses, we don't. And so we're the ones who'll be first to die.
Well, you're a mom too, right?
I
So
am.
that has a whole other difficult thing of working in the cannabis industry and being a mother. Can you share with us some of the pains that you've had of being a mom in the cannabis space?
Yeah, I mean, it's always interesting, being a mom in the cannabis space. Everything from, back to school night when all the parents are talking about what they do. It's like, hey, Langston's mom pushes weight, saying she like it's what I do, and wondering if that's going to affect my child. I'm lucky I've had lots of conversations, obviously, with my child about what I do. And if you ask him, he's like, my mom sells plant medicine to women of color. Like that is his attitude about it. And I love that for him. And so, that is always a little bit, you're walking a tightrope. What's also, particularly difficult for me as a single mother is that I own a dispensary, and he is obviously not 18. Therefore, he can never, ever step foot into the business that his mom owns. And that is hard on a couple different levels. It's hard because he hears about it all the time and he sees it, and he was in the space prior to it being licensed, or whatever. And now that, mom is there all the time, he can never go in, and that's hard. So I always have if he gets dropped off there or something, a little kid who's sitting on the curb in front of a dispensary, because he can't, come into mommy's work, or I can't, even if he's sick, go run in and, like a regular mom would. So that always becomes a balance for me as well, knowing that, hey, if I got my kid, I can't go cover a shift, or I can't do this, because he can't walk in the door. So that becomes difficult as well. And it's also, in the overall, I think a lot of moms who are in this space, especially ones who came into the industry around, when I did or earlier, have always had, concerns about CPS or DCFS or whatever it's called within your community, having issues with, what you do. Am I going to get my kids taken away because I work in the cannabis space, or they know that I, consume cannabis, or et cetera, et cetera. And that is, though it's the most absurd thing in the world and it upsets the heck out of me, it's still stories that we hear and we see that, people are being persecuted for cannabis consumption. And it's, I think that as moms, I think that hits a little bit harder. Even when I decided to enter this space, coming from, the entertainment industry, I can't tell you how many people told me, hey, you're going to lose your kid. Hey, you're going to lose your kid because, white guys can work in cannabis, but it's not for you. They'll find a way to prosecute you. And that's scary. And so you have to make sure you're educating your kid and make sure that you're educating yourself. But I thought that at the same time, it was really important to put out different views of what a mom who consumed was, what a mom who worked in cannabis was. And that's why, on Instagram, I'm the Hi Mommy Life, because I talk about my cannabis consumption and I talk about my kid, because those are two things that are very real in my life. So I wanted to be able to share that and not feel like it was something that I needed to hide.
Well, but I also feel like that helps you because it's very relatable for women like us who are in the same in a similar situation, or other women out there who smoke and have all of those hangups that you had at the beginning, but realize how much the medicine helps them. But since everybody around them creates this sort of like
Stigma.
narrative and stigma, they're in the
It's like
closet.
you're
But
a
people,
mom and you smoke weed. Like, what's your kid doing? Like, how can you be
right?
high around your kid?
Yeah.
They say as they drink their wine and pop
Mhm.
their
Nice.
Vicodin and everything else. I'm like, it's fun to be able to judge people, but I think that using cannabis makes me a more mindful parent. It makes me a more mindful parent. It gives me that patience that it takes to go sit down on the floor and play Legos for a couple hours. It gives me an outlet
Yeah.
for a lot of my stress. It's nice to be able to go put my kid to bed and smoke a joint and really feel like I can like turn off the day and turn off some of the anxiety that I might have. All of those things are important. It's a part of self-care. And what we know is that, as research continues to come in, that it's good for anxiety, it's good for PTSD, it's good for a lot of these things. And I think that it's critical that we're having those conversations. Especially with women, because what we know for sure is that women are more stressed than men. And actually, women of color are the most stressed cohort out there. And yet we have the least access to healthcare. And when we do have access to healthcare, what the research is saying, the data is saying, is that the doctors aren't listening to us. And when we can get them to listen to us, oftentimes people don't even have the money to pay for the treatments that are being prescribed. So being able to have access to safe, legal cannabis within their community does make a difference. It gives people the opportunity to use plant medicine in their healthcare goals. And I think that that is, a public health concern. We should be able to have that.
I agree 100%. I think if anybody needs cannabis, it's definitely mothers.
Yeah.
We benefits. Can
Yeah,
you?
well, we've smoked weed for a long time, probably longer than you had said.
Yeah, because
we
you
were
said
back
you
in.
didn't do it in high school.
You're
or
right,
college.
and we've been smoking since high school, college, and I feel like becoming a mom has made me smoke even more. I'm consumed
differently,
more now.
but
Right,
yeah, definitely more.
For
definitely more.
real.
Help in so many ways. Tell us a little bit about your dispensary, Josephine and Billy's, and like what the experience is
It's
when you
beautiful.
visit.
We were looking at pictures.
We're dying to come out to California.
It's gorgeous.
You should visit us.
I love Great Gatsby and all of that. Do you guys like that? Because everything looks very that
20s
style.
inspired.
Right.
It's very 20s, 30s inspired. So the store is named Josephine and Billy's after Josephine Baker and Billie Holiday because they were two women of color who were persecuted for cannabis consumption. And yet they used their art to fight against injustice, and they rejected the mainstream, and they wrote their own rules and held the door open for other women who would come after them. And for us, that's goals AF. So that's where like the name came from. And for us, the concept is a tea pad. Tea pads were places in the 20s and 30s where people of color could come together because they couldn't go to speakeasies. So you had mixed crowds and people of color, and you got your writers and your poets and your jazz singers and your thought leaders and your activists all coming together in secret places to consume cannabis and drink alcohol and exchange big ideas. And so that's kind of the feeling that you get back in this, secret tea pad. That's like also like a found space. So you've got, some cabinets that look like it could have been in your grandma's house and a lot of like old things mixed with new. And the whole store is designed by terpene profile because terpenes are actually a better way to describe how cannabis will make you feel than sativa and indica. With breeding and genetics these days, it's very, very difficult to even find a true sativa or a true indica. Almost everything out there is hybrids. And then if we call something a sativa and it doesn't give you the feeling that you expect, then you're like, oh, this newfangled weed isn't doing what it's supposed to. And really, you're not looking at the right indicators to give you the best experience. So we really work with our customer base in order to explain to them what terpenes are. They're the oils in the plant. And, those, besides being aromatic, they help determine how that plant's going to make you feel. So we have, 5 main sections. So for myrcene, we call that relax, and beta-caryophyllene, we call it relieve, and limonene is uplift, and it really allows people to say, hey, how do I want to feel? And then I'll go to the section where that, terpene is strongest at, and it gives them other things to look at, because a lot of times people are like, I just want to buy the cannabis with the most THC percentage. Well, we don't go to the bar and say, you know what, I just want to drink moonshine because it has the most alcohol content.
Right.
Like, that's not how we make decisions. So we're giving people the tools to make better decisions to make sure that the cannabis consumption that they're doing meets their health goals and that they feel comfortable while doing it. So we have things like every product has a little tag that has, a champagne glass rating system on it. So because we figured that champagne is something that's pretty universal. You know how you feel versus with 1 glass of champagne versus 5 glasses of champagne. And then you can say, hey, I need a 5 champagne glass, joint, and I need a 2 champagne glass edible. That allows me to be able to make, choices about how I want to consume. We also do a lot of in-store education. I teach a class every other week called Tea and Terpenes, where we sit down in our back tea pad and literally drink tea and eat crumpets and learn, cannabis 101. What is, a terpene? Why should I think about bioavailability? What's the difference between the true differences between an indica and sativa? And it allows people not only to grab all this information and be able to make better choices for themselves, but they're also going to share that information and help other people make better choices. It also helps them build community, because a lot of people come in and they're like, I've never had a chance to sit down and talk to other people about my cannabis consumption or whatever, or, my family doesn't like that I smoke, so I don't talk to them about it or whatever. But it's so cool to be able to just sit in this room and talk about, the way I consume and learn new things. So it gives us a little bit of an opportunity to bond and connect.
That's awesome. I think moms too, our age, like the only reason we're so educated about all the different kinds of the ways that you can consume is because of the podcast. But when we talk to a lot of people, even people who are like patrons of ours who really get to know us, they're still in the dark when it comes to all the different consumption methods that there are now.
And the
They
terpene.
are.
I love that your store is focused on the terpenes. That is amazing. I wish there were more dispensaries that did that. We don't have that availability here where we can be like, what are the terps in this specific strain? We have to look it up, and then hope that it's
Even
as
the
close
bud
to what the
tenders.
internet says. Yeah.
Even the bud tenders aren't
And the
like
terps
well
is what it's all
versed
about.
in it.
Yeah, I'm like, I learn on a daily basis. I mean, it's funny now that I'm teaching this class, how many people who come to take it are bud tenders at other people's dispensaries, who are like, I never learned any of this stuff. I want, to bulk up. I think it's really important that we're giving as much information as possible. And for me, that's the joy of legal weed, is the fact that, this stuff is tested, so I can get as much information as possible and know what I'm consuming. People don't just drink, beers that some stranger off the street bottled themselves, or whatever. You want to know what you're consuming. And in the same way, I kind of feel that way about cannabis now. I want to know what it is. I wouldn't eat an edible that someone just handed me. I don't know if that's like 100 milligrams or 5 milligrams. I need to make choices. Like, eventually this kid's gonna want dinner and I need my legs to work. Like, come on. So in that same way, I think that as an industry, we have a responsibility to push towards greater cannabis education.
And that was our interview with Whitney Beatty. Please follow her on Instagram. She is at the Hi Mommy Life, at the
Apothecary.
The Apothecary, and at Josephine and Billy's. The website is josephineandbillies.com. If you're watching, all that information is up there. You could screenshot it.
I am so ready for a trip out to the West Coast.
Yes, we would be hitting her up.
Josephine and Billy's.
It's lovely. All the education and all the resources that she's providing for us is great. So check her out. Hey, thank you to our sponsors. Fluent. Look right here.
Oh yeah, I'm wearing this shirt. By the way.
There you go. Thank you guys so much for sponsoring our smoke sesh.
Thank you.
And thank you for your weed.
Special thank you to our patrons. And if you're still here listening, you should be one of our patrons. Oh, yes. Thank you for that. Reminding us there.
Thank you, Uncle Jesse. Alternative Products Expo. Go to that March 3rd to 5th. This weekend.
We will be there.
Yeah, get free tickets. We were posting about them this week. So
yeah, stay tuned to our social media.
Yeah, we'll post the link up for you and you can get free tickets. Even if you're not going, just get the free tickets. Thank you to all of our patrons. You guys make it happen. Yanni,
Destiny,
Lauren,
Jesse,
Christy,
Denise,
Peaches,
Meredith,
Natalie,
Angelina,
Jenny,
Catherine,
Jay,
Chrissy,
Guillermo,
Diane,
Gabby,
and Leslie.
You too could have your name read by one of our lovely faces. Join our Patreon. You can get full access to us. You can get full access to us, pretty much.
Content that we sometimes don't ever air. Very exclusive content, exclusive merch.
So much shit talking.
Lots of random smoke sessions, vacations.
All kinds of fun stuff. We'll tell you all about the vacation when we go.
Yes.
And then surely you'll want to be a patron then.
So please subscribe, rate, review, share our content, and go to our website, potsmokingmoms.com, and we'll see you guys next week.
And in the meantime, dance to our intro theme music.
Now outro.
Outro.